if I give you some shoes, you'll be better off. Tom's shoes, buy some shoes so that some other people have a better life. All of this nonsense, Jordan, I've been hearing throughout times. But guess what? None of them made any sense to me. Because if you're going to make it also about, let's say, even use the IQ, which I should not even give a minute to. But then how come the same person, same background, same education, let's take even my parents, all of a sudden they make it to Europe, and voila, they can manifest their greatest potential. So I'm starting to think maybe it's not about this person. Maybe there's something else that's not about this person per se in this situation. And then I'm like, maybe it has to do with the place they get to be in or not. And so that was starting to brew in my head. So as all of this is happening, I'm living my little life. From Germany, a couple years later, my family decided we're going to move to France if we're going to stay in Europe for many reasons, because, France used to be Senegal is an ex-colony of France. And then after my business school in France, I decided that France was going to be too small for my ambitions. I got to get out of here. I don't want to be in a country where you have to be, if you make it to the right school, you get to the right behind for the right amount of time, then you can hope maybe for some type of promotion. No, that was not for me. I'm not saying that everybody does that, but it was just not a good option for me. So I looked around and I could go anywhere, literally as I wanted. And I thought about the United States, this one country where anyone can become anything they want as long as they put in the work and if that's what they desire to do. And so I came to the US. And when I came to the US, I was first a headhunter in finance in the Silicon Valley in the heydays of a .com. I used to go to Netflix when Netflix was this tiny office in San Jose. Google, when most people didn't even know how to pronounce Google, it was one little building. In the Silicon Valley. And so there I got to see all of this entrepreneurship happening. And so Jordan, this is where at some point something happened, and I'm taking a little detour here, but this detour is so important because I will get you to my answer because it's right there. So while I was in Silicon Valley, I was pretty much steeped into what they call the ecosystem of the entrepreneur. And just this idea of two people getting together, they have an idea, write it in the back of a napkin. It sounds cliche, but I lived it. I've seen it. And then they go to a lawyer to start their business, to start, the company legally, find some investors, and this whole ecosystem that comes around them. Mm-hmm. And then I start to be like, wow, this is rather amazing. And I think it's in Silicon Valley that I discovered the magic of entrepreneurship is to create something out of nothing. And that to me was so powerful, so powerful. I was living it in my bones. And from there...
Right, but as you pointed out, there are a lot of moving parts in that system, aren't there? Because
absolutely.
You need people who have an entrepreneurial vision and who think of themselves that way. And then you need a group of people around you like that to talk to. And then you need early stage financiers who are often friends and family who are willing to contribute time, effort, money. And then you need later stage financing. And there is and the ability to work with customers and the willingness to market and sell. And so all of these pieces have to fall into place before anything like prosperity can beckon. You encountered this in Silicon Valley, and what did that do to you?
Yeah, so I encountered that in Silicon Valley, but just before you go, when you were talking about the early investment in your family and your friends, we like to talk about the 3 Fs, family, friends, and fools. So the fools are very useful there. So in any case, so here I am in Silicon Valley, and and I was doing extremely well for myself. At age 25, I was making 6 figures, bought my home with a pool in one of the most expensive zip codes in America, and I say it more for what can happen in this country. I could never, ever have dreamed of such a life in such a young age, being who I am back home in France. So right there, the American dream does exist. It was real for me, an immigrant from Africa. So, but Jordan, with all of that success, one day I lost it. One day I was driving down Big Sur, one of the most beautiful roads, if you ask me, in the world. With
Highway 1.
Highway 1 with a Pacific.
Man, it's something, eh?
It's so beautiful. You cannot not believe in God when you're on that path, okay? That's how beautiful it is.
Yeah, especially if you're taking hairpin corners in a convertible.
Yes. Absolutely. And you know, Jordan, it was one of those moments. That day was one of those days when the sun was, as usual, was shining. The ocean was beautiful. I was, listening to some Yusundur in my car, great Senegalese musician, and just feeling so much gratitude and also so much pride in myself for what I was able to accomplish, and so much gratitude for everyone and everything that helped me get there. And just as many times, just like it happens, every time I got to that moment of bliss, right away my mood turned. Everything became dark, as it usually does. Because why? Because right at that moment, I started thinking about the people that I had left back home. And it happened oftentimes through my life, because how else do you feel when you're growing up and you hear your parents, or you read the news, you hear the news, and it's saying that a body dropped from a plane somewhere above England because someone decided to migrate right to Europe for a better life, just like my parents did, but they did it again under better conditions. And they thought it would be a good idea to hide into the landing gear. But somewhere above, London, above England, the body falls. Or they open the plane and they find in the cargo section of a plane a frozen body. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to hide in the cargo section of a plane. No one told them. It gets so cold up there. Or, this boat just tipped. This little fisherman's boat just tipped, somewhere along between the coast of Senegal and Spain, which is the first entry into Europe for these people. But the boat tipped over. It is not equipped to make this journey. And in the boat, you have babies, you have young people, primarily young people. And these are some of our most entrepreneurial people, the people that we need to build the prosperity back home. And where are they now? Lying at the bottom of the ocean, serving as fish food. How else would you feel if for years growing up, these are the stories that you're hearing? And yet
why do you think your conscience bothered you at that point? I mean, you'd come to the States, you'd become successful, you had this beautiful day. And so why all of a sudden do you suppose your thoughts turned to the people that had been left behind, so to speak? I mean, it wasn't your fault that they were in the state they were in.
I know, yeah. I know, it wasn't my fault, for sure. It took me a long time to accept that it wasn't my fault. So what happened that day is I no longer was able to play the schizophrenia game that I've played my whole life. I was no longer able to, the coping mechanism that I had developed up till then no longer was holding. The coping mechanism that I had developed back for all of these years was, as soon as I started thinking about it, I would actually tell myself, this is not your fault. You have a life to live. It is not fair. Yeah, I would tell myself all of these stories, and then I would just shrug it under the rug.